It's your boy Covalent. We back, and I'm talking about plus frames. So if you haven't seen my first video and where I talk about plus frames and what frames are, you should go check that out. So it should be on YouTube, TikTok, and then whatever other social media I'm on. Um, but I want to go into depth about frames because there are some people who still don't understand how Tekken works. And once you understand frames in Tekken, you can start to become a better player. Now, what are plus frames? Plus frames are frames that give you a advantage on your next attack. So for instance, if you see after I do this move, if you look at the attack startup frame, right? The number in blue says frame advantage. It's a +1. That means that my next move after I do this move and you block, my next move is going to be 1 frame less, right? And so some people may say, what difference does that make? That makes a really big difference. 1 frame makes a really big difference, especially if you and your opponent are pressing buttons at the same time. And that's where the frame advantage comes into play. So after you do a move and you have plus frames, you now have the advantage over your opponent if you press the right button. And so I know some people may be saying, I still don't get it. So I'm going to give you 2 examples. I'm going to give you one example in where I beat my opponent pressing a button and where me and my opponent clash because of the plus frames and the button that I chose to press. So I take this move right here because it's the easiest move, but once you understand plus frames and how to apply them, you can do it with any move. Like Clive has a bunch of moves, just like everybody has a bunch of moves. So I'm +7 right there. Once you understand the +1, you can understand the +7. It's simple math, but you have to understand how to apply it to make it work for you. And I'll go into +1, +7, whatnot, because once you understand the +1, you'll understand +2, +5, and then +8. You know, whatever your frame advantage is. Okay, so let's start with this move because it's very, very simple and very basic. This move right here, I'm +1. So I'm going to have the computer do this move right here for her. And so after my +1 move, I know my opponent's going to press a button. And here's where you have to start using logic. So I throw this move out a couple times to see if my opponent is going to press a button because I know that I'm plus, right? You don't just want to start throwing moves out there and then doing moves afterwards because you might get counter hit. You want to make sure that your opponent is going to press a button so that you can use your plus frames to your advantage. And so I will throw this move out a couple times to see if, one, my opponent ducks, because it's a mid-high, right? You can definitely duck the second attack. And if I notice that my opponent is not ducking the second attack, or if my opponent is pressing a button afterwards, I'm like, this is a perfect opportunity for me to use my plus frames. So let's just record some scenarios here. Okay. That's one of them. Okay. So we'll keep that. And then let's record another one. Okay, and we're gonna use a different follow-up this time. Okay, that's all I want to use. Yeah, let's put the frequency at 0 right now because I don't want to use that move right now. Okay. So when I do this move, I'm +1. My next move, because I know my opponent is going to press a button, I want to be able to I want to make sure that regardless of whatever button my opponent presses, that they can't win the exchange. And so what happens is your plus frames get subtracted from your next move. So let me just use a reference frame here for example. So the fastest move that you can do in this game is 10 frames, and that's a jab. That is the quickest move. You can't get any quicker than that. So the quickest move that you can do to interrupt someone is a jab, which is 10 frames. Okay? And then some moves have a follow-up in which you can get a combo off of, like this move right here. Okay, you get a 2-hit combo, right? What else? What else? Okay, double jab, right? And so, but the starting move starts off at 10 frames. So that's the quickest move that you can do in the game to interrupt someone. Okay? So in this exchange, once I block and my opponent is pressing a button, even if they press the quickest button in the game, which is a jab, since I have a +1, if I use my jab combo, right? That, my 10 frame attack now becomes a 9 frame attack, and I will always beat my opponent. So I'll show you. Okay, I'm gonna try to attack next time with jab. See? Regardless of what button I press, I cannot beat him on the exchange. And this is why you get hit. It's because your opponent has the frame advantage. So what is happening there is I'm blocking the attack. And right after the attack, I'm trying to attack him. But since he has a frame advantage of 1, he is doing his quickest move, which is a 10 frame jab into another button, which gives him a combo. But that 10 frames now becomes 9 frames because he was +1. He had a plus frame advantage from the last hit that he did, which now makes his move 9 frames, which is the fastest move in the game at that point. And that's why I can't get through. And so you'll notice a lot of times when people do certain things that they get hit. And you're like, I don't understand why I got hit. That's most likely the reason why you got hit is because your opponent was on a frame advantage. And so you may be thinking, well, that can't be true, or, can you prove it some other way? I can definitely prove it some other way. So instead of doing a jab afterwards, I'm going to have my opponent do another move that is, I believe, 16 frames. And so his next move technically would be 16, but since he's +1, it's going to be 15. I'm going to do a 15 frame move, which is this right here. And then if my logic is correct, since his 16 frame move now has a +1 advantage, it should turn into a 15 frame move, and then we should collide at the same time doing a clash. So we both hit each other, and that's that. So let me show you. Okay. Okay, it's that move right there. Okay. See? See? Repeatable. So, if you don't understand what's happening here, let me show you from my side. Okay. Actually, I need to put it back in defense mode so it can make more sense. Okay. So, this move right here, I'm +1 after it if you block. If you press a button, depending on what button that you press, it will give you different outcomes. Since I chose to use a 16 frame move, after this move, right? That this six oh, I didn't mean to grab, but that 16 frame move now becomes 15 frames, right? So if you look at the attack startup frames, it's 16, but since I'm +1, it's 15. So it is a 15 frame move when I'm +1. And this move that I'm doing to try to counter him is also 15 frames. So that's why we collide at the same time. So plus frames take off frames from your next move. So if you saw how we clash there, that's what happens. That's what plus frames get you. And the more plus frames you have, the more I don't want to say options. Well, yeah, the more plus frames that you have, the more options that you have to select certain moves. So for example, this move right here, I'm +7. That's a lot of frames. So +7 gets me a free launcher. And let me explain this. So +7 will give me a free launcher if my opponent presses a button after I do this move. So let's break down the logic. Let's record this move. So record. All right. I think we're fine because I think it needs to hit. So we'll save that. And then we'll put that down to 0. Yeah, I think we're good. Okay. Okay. So how does this get me a free launcher? So the reason why this is a free launcher into a combo is because my very next... Okay, so I'm +7 after this move. Here, let me... Okay. So I'm +7, and then the next move I do is 15, right? So all you got to do is just do the math, right? So if I'm +7 after that move, and the next move that I do is 15, take away 7 from 15, and what do you get? That's 8, right? So now that move becomes the fastest move in the game because of the plus frames. The fastest move that I can do to try to counter that is a 10 frame punish, but 8 frames is faster than 10 frames. So essentially, I'm 2 frames short of even trying to have a collision. And that's why it's a free launcher. If you press any button besides trying to armor through, it's a free launcher. And I'll demonstrate that here. That was a jab. I tried the jab there. I can get through it like that. But any other move, no. There's certain ways of getting through the move, right? Like don't get me wrong, it's not an invincible move. But if your opponent is pressing buttons, right, you want to use that to your advantage and do a move that has plus frames, and then you follow up with the move afterwards that regardless of whatever button that they press, you will most likely be the outcome. You want to make sure that it's a frame advantage on your end. Then you should wind up with a successful counter hit, which leads you into more pressure. So I hope this made sense. I hope that the explanation of the frame advantages and how to use them makes sense now. So you can go back with your character And this is what I do with my characters all the time. Let's go back to offense. So I put my characters in stand block. And I figure out, okay, what moves am I plus on? Like I'm plus on this one, I'm plus on this one. There's a couple other moves that you're plus on, right? You got to find all those moves. And then what you do from there is you find moves that are, I want to say, less than 10 frames when you have plus frame advantage, right? Because the quickest move that you could do in the game is 10 frames. But if you're on plus frames, right, you want to do a move that your opponent can't counter. So whatever button that they press, they're going to end up getting counter hit, right? And the more plus frames you have, the more options you have for moves that you can do. So hopefully that was informational for you and helps you become a better Tekken player. So I'll be making more videos about plus frames. I'm actually going to do negative frames and then talk about that. So, but if you enjoyed the content, by all means, follow me on social media. I got more of that coming for you.